I'm AC Brown, and you're listening to Is My Aura on Straight, a podcast designed to help you start living from your core instead of your conditioning. Each week, we'll discuss topics ranging from human design, astrology, metaphysics, spiritual self-development, and everything in between. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Is My Aura on Straight. I am your host, AC Brown. I am your spiritual doula, intuitive strategist, psychic channel, and human design expert. And I'm also an entrepreneur, and I want to thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Is My Aura on Straight. If you looked at the title, we are talking about astrology today. Yes. We're talking about rising sign. Of course, the title of this is Rising Sign Realness. Yes. Snap your fingers. Pretend you're in an episode of Pose. Yes. This is one of my favorite aspects of astrology. There's other aspects that I like, but of course, my favorite would be rising sign astrology, North Node astrology, and some of the planets. That is what I love. That is what I have fallen in love with. Astrology is my first love. I brought my first astrology books probably at 12 or 13. So I've been into astrology for a very long time, studying charts, aspects, transits, all of that stuff. But my favorite is rising sign stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about rising sign realness. Now, there's a little disclaimer. You must know your birth time to have an accurate rising sign. This is where your birth time is really important, especially in astrology. If you do not know your correct birth time, and when I mean correct, it needs to be at least you have a little bit of an hour variance with your rising sign, an hour, maybe 30 minutes. So, if you don't know your exact birth time, it's going to be really hard to figure out what your rising sign is, because the rising sign in the day changes, I believe, every 2 hours. So that makes it a little bit challenging. Sometimes you can intuitively figure it out, but I like to have people's birth times. I like people to know their birth times. So that your rising sign is really important. So we're going to talk about that today. But of course, first, we're going to just hit on the main things of, well, why doesn't everybody talk about rising sign? Well, of course, you see horoscopes, you read horoscopes, you see astrology memes, and you see quotes on the internet. And of course, they usually point to your sun sign. Your sun sign, I like to say, is the basic bitch of your personality. It is the basic version of yourself. It is what is most consistent in throughout your life, as far as your personality traits. Those traits they remain the most consistent. So I'm a Pisces. Those are the traits that remain most consistent. But my rising sign, I'm a Sagittarius. So your sun sign indicates the inner personality, the part that no one sees until they really get to know you. That's a good way of explaining it. Now, the reason why at most times when you read your horoscope, say you're a Pisces, you're a Sagittarius, you're a Libra, you're a Gemini, you're a Cancer, one of those, and then you read it and you're like, this doesn't really make sense. I don't really feel that. Or, after you read it, you're like, oh, that didn't happen this month or this week. Go to your rising sign. It's best to read your rising sign first. And I'm going to explain to you why. But it's best to read your rising sign first for a numerous amount of reasons. So your rising sign is equals to what is on the horizon at the time that you were born. It's also your viewpoint as a person. So your rising sign is also the mask that people see when they first meet you. It dictates your personality and your appearance. Your rising sign is one of the most important parts of your natal chart for the following reasons. And this is my opinion. This is other astrologers' opinions as well. I don't consider myself an astrologer. I dabble in it, meaning that I've studied it for my own personal stuff, and I can pick up on things intuitively when I meet people and read people astrologically. However, your rising sign is the most important for several reasons. One of them is it indicates your childhood circumstances. Um, when you see someone's chart and when you know their rising sign, you know how they deal with certain things in their childhood. It describes the influences that become a part of your being at the very moment that you were born. So when you were born, that time that you were born, that is what was happening on the horizon. So that's your rising sign. And the most important thing is that, extremely important, is that your rising sign is the vehicle that your soul chose to drive through life on earth. Let me repeat that, because this is why I love the rising sign. Your rising sign, it is the vehicle that your soul chose to drive through life on this earth. So as a passenger, you are your sun sign. Like I said, that's the core of who you are. Your rising sign is the car. Your rising sign is how you get through things, how you get through trials and tribulations, what people see when they first meet you. So I'm sure this has happened to a number of people who are listening to this, where somebody will meet and you'll be like, oh, you remind me of an Aquarius. And you're like, no, I'm a Gemini, but your rising sign might be an Aquarius, or your moon sign might be an Aquarius. So those are the things that people first associate you with, those personality traits. So when it comes to your rising sign determines your outlook on life. It's the sunglasses or the glasses that you put on, your view of the world at that current time. So your rising sign determines the decisions you make about survival. That's why your rising sign is so important. I love sun sign astrology. I read my Pisces horoscope, but I go to my Sagittarius more than anything, because that's going to depict a everyday accurate picture for me. So like I said, your rising sign determines the decisions you make about survival. So when it comes to surviving on this earth, in this current situation that you are in your soul, your rising sign is going to be the person who reacts. So your rising sign is the person who confronts things for you. They're your big sister or your big brother. That's your rising sign. Your rising sign is not going to let you get beat up. It's not going to let people talk to you a certain kind of way. Your rising sign is going to show up first. Now, there's some people who are, I like to call them, they're, dual signs, where they have your rising sign and your sun sign are the same person. And it's my belief that your rising sign actually shows up as the more aggressive personality traits of your zodiac than your sun sign. So if you're a double Libra, whatever those aggressive Libra personality traits are, that's who's going to show up first when people meet you. So your rising sign can sometimes be a wall or even a facade that people see first, because it's that that blanket kind of, oh, that's who you are. I identify a lot with my rising sign. My father's a Sagittarius, my grandfather's a Sagittarius. That's their sun signs. My rising sign is a Sagittarius. So I not only have a rising sign in Sagittarius, but I also have heavy Sagittarian influences in my life. So some of my personality traits, the way I do business, absolutely. The way I dream, the way that comes off in my rising sign, with me being a Sagittarius as a rising sign. So in your rising sign is also part of your personality that is the most easily expressed. And that is because, like I said, it's that whole mass, that first thing. So it's your protection. It's your big brother, your big sister. It's that part of your personality. So your rising sign is the mask that you put on automatically when you're in an uncertain situation. So anytime you are faced with fears or decisions outside of your strategy and authority, of course, you're going to react first with your rising sign. That is hands down. You're going to react first that way, which is nothing wrong. So, there's nothing wrong with that. That's why when it comes to compatibility, aside from human design, when it comes to your astrology, it's very important to, all those other factors in your charts, which I love I love astrology, and there's certain things that you want to look for, and certain transits and trines, and and all of that stuff when it comes to compatibility. That's why you just can't say, "Oh, I'm not compatible with this particular sign," because it totally depends on so many other factors when it comes to astrology and synastry and all of that, to see how that all meshes. So, getting your astrology, chart read is important. Now, I don't want you guys to go down a rising sign rabbit hole. The goal for this podcast is to make you aware that if you are not seeing results reading certain astrology posts, my favorite astrologers are Shani Nichols and old school, uh, what's her name? She always, I can't believe Susan Miller. Gosh, I've been following Susan Miller for like the longest time. Susan Miller, let me tell you something. She is accurate as F. Like, she's super accurate. So is Shani. But those are probably my two. And Mika Woods. Mika Woods, favorite astrologers that I've been following for a long time. And there's some new up and coming people, or people who you haven't heard of, that are really great at certain aspects of astrology. But like an overall kind of, and Astro Ray, he's super old school. I don't even think he has Instagram, or I don't think he has an Astro Ray is like, he's definitely been around. He's been doing astrology for like 40 years. But, those are the faves. Amika Woods, Susan Miller, Shani Nichols, Astro Ray. I love those astrologers. There's so many other. The Voluptuous Wish, she's good. I follow her. But, I bring that up because when you are reading these posts on astrology, go to your rising sign first. That's the whole point of this, is to focus on your rising sign, because your rising sign is going to be a more accurate depiction of what's happening day to day and what's actually going on. Your sun sign can be accurate, but any true astrologer, any good astrologer who's been studying for a long time, is going to tell you, read your rising sign first. Read your rising sign first, then you read your sun sign, and you also read your moon sign. And I'm going to be honest with you, my moon sign stuff has never really come into play when it comes to astrology. And I read it, and it just, nothing happens usually with that. But my rising sign is always on point, is always accurate, because that is like the day to day, I like to say, when it comes to your astrology. So I'm going to go over I'm going to go over all of the rising signs and just some character traits that are associated with them, just to help you guys out. So we'll start with the fire signs. So Aries rising people are very well organized, and they're explorers. Leo rising people, very dignified. They have a lot of good taste. They have really good taste. Sagittarius rising. Hey, Sagittarius rising booze. Leaders, and they're pleasant to be around. Then we'll go to our earth signs. You have your Taurus rising people. They are social butterflies. Taurus rising people. Virgo rising people are very mentally stimulating. And then you have your Capricorn rising. They are workers and very social as well. And then you have your air signs. Gemini rising people are very busy, and they are very engaging. Have your Libra risings, and they're very business oriented, which is surprising because a lot of Libra suns, they are not necessarily always business oriented. No shade to my Libras out there, but my Libra risings, they have a lot of business acumen with them. Aquarius rising people, they make great plans. They're planners, pretty much. And then you have my water sign people, my Cancer rising people. They are talkers, and they do whatever it takes to get what they need to get done. And then you have your Scorpio rising people. They like to hide themselves from people. And they and there are other things too. Scorpio risings, I'm not going to get into that. And then you have Pisces rising people. They're soft and gentle, and can be a little bit misleading. So that's just an overview of some of the rising sign characteristics. Now, like I said before, the goal of this is not to get you down a rising sign spiral and be like, oh my gosh, my life is, going to be difficult or challenging because I don't know my rising sign, or I've been reading my sun sign horoscopes for all of these years. It's just another tool to get to know yourself. It's another self-development, spiritual development tool to get to know and understand yourself and the way you do things. That is why I'm here, to help you figure out why you are here. What are you here to do? I'm going to do a podcast episode about your soul and all that, because I'm really big into that. I read a lot and study a lot on your soul, and just when you come back to earth and your past lives. I'm really into that, because it is truly my belief that the things that you don't take care of here, you will repeat them lifetime after lifetime. That is why it's so important. That is why it's my duty and it's my purpose in this lifetime to help people figure out why they're here. I take that extremely seriously. It brings me to tears almost, because you will repeat it. You have, and what people don't understand is you choose this body that you are in. You choose the lessons and the things that you go through here. It's all for you to overcome and to make a better way for yourself the next lifetime. And so that is why I love rising sign astrology so much, is because your rising sign is the vehicle that your soul has chosen to drive through and get through the things that you are going to get through in this lifetime. So pay attention to your rising sign, embrace it, learn more about it, learn about that particular sign, learn about that particular element, because it is also my belief that people can sometimes deny the shadow part of their rising sign, because your rising sign can also be very ego driven at times, because like I said, it's a facade. At times it can be a wall. It can be something that you've built up or that you've lived behind for so long. So embrace that. Maybe I'll do a little course or a workshop or something on it, because I'm super passionate about your rising sign, because that's how you get through things here. You can go and on any like natal chart kind of thing, and find out your rising sign, but you do need to know your birth time. If for those of you who don't know your birth time, if you do have access to your parents, try and get at least a 30 to an hour window. If they, I think it was around 10:30 or 11, like that's good enough. But they're like, I don't know if it was in the morning or the night. That's going to be a huge problem when it comes to figuring out your rising sign. So just keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, I'm going to be doing more stuff on the things, all my knowledge that I have and all the things that I've learned and have certifications and all of that stuff, and teaching you guys more. And I'm going to be doing interviews with people soon about I'm testing out things right now, so just hang tight. And there's going to be courses and workshops and masterminds being released before the end of the year. I'm super excited. I've been working really hard, guys. You have no idea. You have no idea. But of course you can, get a human design chart reading from me. That link is in the bio in my Instagram. You can get a relationship human design chart reading from me, of course, as well. I do coaching. I do all those things as well. Just reach out to me. But like I said before, your rising sign is super important. It's probably, in my opinion, I like to say it's the more important than your sun sign. But don't tell anybody. don't tell anybody that. Your rising sign and your north node are probably the most things that I focus on besides when it comes to love, figuring out suns and moons and Venuses. I love that stuff, so I can talk about it all day. But like I said before, human design is just the baseline of what I'm about and who I am. I know that my purpose here is to help you all figure out and help people figure out why the fuck they're here. It's very clear to me. I get signs from that all the time. All the readings that I've gotten in the past 5 years have said that to me. So it's time for me to step into that. It's time for me to step into it. But thank you all for listening again. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. You're going to hear more about these different aspects in astrology. We're going to start diving deeper into human design and how this all works together, or let me rephrase, how I make it all work together. If you could see my brain and how I think, you'd be like, how did you come up with that? And just like, that's how I think, like just putting the pieces to the puzzle together with human design, with astrology, metaphysics, all of that stuff. It's a little unconventional for some people, but the way I, process all of this information and the things that I learn and the tools that I have, I put it all together and I make it make sense for people. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. You ladies and gentlemen enjoyed this, and thank you so much for listening. And like I said, your rising sign is the vehicle that your soul chose to ride through this life. That is just something that is extremely important for me to get through to you, because of all of the things that you probably go through in life. That's why I want you to investigate and just, focus on a little bit when you're finding out your rising sign. Go and read that first. Start, working with your rising sign, working with that element if it's not the same element as your sun sign. So just keep that in mind. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me through DM, slide in my DMs, or send me an email. But until next time, until next time, I want you guys to have a great day filled with good vibes and great energy. And don't let anybody fuck with your energy or your vibes. All right, bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Is My Aura on Straight. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at AC Brown, and also check out my website for products and services at www.acbrown.com. And until we meet again, make sure you have a great week filled with good vibes and good energy.